So, guys, episode 2 of this new Eden series. What does it mean? What is Eden? That's what we're exploring. First episode, we kind of gave a very broad overstroke of what we're going to be talking about over the next 2 weeks. And this episode, we're going to start really the part 1 of diving in to what it means to be Eden. I said you are Eden. I know that seems really strange to think of, but it's true. Actually, Isaiah prophesied and said that Eden would come again, but it would be in the hearts of men. And so here's a really cool thing that we're going to explore in this Eden. So episode 2, we're calling the house of God. And now I know a lot of people think that the house of God is the church. It's the building that we go to visit, and fellowship in, but it's not. It's never been the church. Actually, in Acts, it says that he will never again dwell in temples made of human hands. Why? Because he dwells in us. So we are the house of God. So we're going to explore what that even means. Because I know we always hear it, but what does it mean? So to be God's house, it means that you carry God inside of you. Like we said yesterday, a kingdom is where the king lives. And so God lives in us. So we become the house or the temple of God. And that's amazing in and of itself. But the reason it's amazing is because of what it stands for. So in Jewish culture, they elected temples. They made massive monumental temples, just huge, as a marker to say this is where God dwells. This is where God lives. Everybody would rather walk past the temple and they would realize that's where God lives. And they would smell the incense burning and they would feel the presence of God around the temple because that's where he lived. But if we are now the temples of God, what does that mean for us? Jacob uses this term in Genesis and he says Bethel, which means the house of God. And that's what we are. And it's amazing because when he does it, it's the story of Jacob. He goes into the desert. He has a dream. He sees this ladder connecting heaven to earth. And he says, this is the house of God. And he builds this big monument and he anoints it with really good smelling stuff. So what does that mean for us? If we are the house of God, we carry God. And God overwhelms us. And when people walk by us, they should be able to be able to feel the presence of God on us. Right? And here's the cool part. Because let me put it in a very simple way. When you walk past somebody's house or you walk towards somebody's house that you can tell it's their house. How can you tell it's their house? You can tell it's their house because they have pictures on the wall. Because their car is sitting out in the front. Because they have their toys in the front. Their kids might be up in the front. You walk up closer to their house and you might smell that their mom is making cookies. So you can recognize somebody's house based on the surroundings around it, based on what it looks like. And then even more so, you get up to the door, you knock on the door opens, and you can tell this is my friend's house. Why? Because their picture's up on the wall. Why? Because their living room is how I remember it. Why? Because I've been there before. It looks like my friend's house. So if you're the house of God, we now have to live our lives looking like God's house, right? Isn't that amazing? We have to actually, realistically, what we're supposed to do is allow Jesus to transform us to the point that people see us and they recognize that God lives in us. Guys, you are the house of God. Isn't that amazing? You are this wonderful thing called the house of God. And what that means is let him transform you and renovate you. And that's what we're going to be doing next week. So stay tuned, because this week we're talking about being the house. Next week we're talking about letting God renovate the house, which is important to become Eden, where heaven meets earth. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. This is episode 2 of the Eden series. Peace, guys. See you soon.